Hello learners, I am Dr. Sumin Prakash, Assistant Professor in the Department of Education, Rajiv Gandhi University, Doimuk, Itanagar, Arunachal Pradesh. And today we are going to discuss about behaviorist lesson planning. Dear student teacher friends, you are all future teachers. As a teacher, you all are expected to go to your classes with sufficient preparation. This preparation involves two things. First, you have mastery over your teaching subject and its pedagogy, and second, you have planned your lesson well in advance before going to the classroom. If you ensure these two things, then your teaching will be effective and you will be capable of engaging your students in learning. Now, lesson planning. Lesson planning is the process of planning of or arranging the contents and processes to be discussed in the class in a sequential way or to put into a coherent way. This planning of the content area to be taught is done for teaching only one period. After lesson planning, we are now going to discuss lesson plans. Lesson plans are considered as the blueprint of a lesson or a line of action to organize learning activities for a single period. It is also considered as the design of actions likely to happen in the classroom for which planning is being done. It is a result of a meticulous planning based on selection of content to be taught and organizing learning activities to meet the academic needs of a particular class or to achieve the predetermined specific instructional or specific objectives set for the class. Since well-prepared lesson plan is a significant part of successful learning, it occupies the central place in the instructional processes and therefore daily lesson plans become an integral component of the classroom teaching. Normally, a lesson plan is prepared for 40-50 minutes. However, it can be made of any length depending upon the need. Effective lesson plans provide meaningful experiences to the learners and are student-centric and provide various opportunities to organize experiences and information into concept during teaching learning process. A lesson plan brings four components into focus. First are the objectives. Second is the content or portion of the subject. Third is the methods, and fourth are the evaluation techniques. While planning, many questions come to the mind of a teacher. How should I start my teaching? What are the relevant teaching points worth to be discussed in the classroom? What type of learning objectives will be used for my students, or what type of learning activities will be useful for my students? How should I know the outcomes of my teaching? Answers to all these questions lie in the lesson planning. First, lesson plan helps in determining the direction of the teaching learning by writing specific objectives. Second, planning helps in establishing the relationship between previous knowledge available with the students and the new knowledge they are going to learn. Third, it helps in determining the content and the learner's suitable learning activities to fulfill the needs of the students. It helps the practitioner teacher to see relationship among lesson objectives, learning activities, and the evaluation. And fifth, it helps the teacher in creating new learning situations in the classroom during lesson transaction. Behaviorism is a systematic approach to understanding the behaviors of humans and animals. It is based on the assumption that behavior is either a reflex evoked by certain antecedent stimuli of the environment or is a consequence of the individual's reinforcement and punishment contingents that are uncertain events or the incidental events. As a theory, behaviorism explains that human and animal behaviors can be explained in terms of conditioning without appeal to the thoughts or the feelings. Similarly, behaviorist approach defines learning as a series of behaviors exhibited by the individuals in response to attain the changing environmental stimuli. Thus, stimulus present in the environment elicits some response at the level of individuals. These responses collectively constitute the behavior, and desired behavior aggregates are called as the learning. Behaviorist lesson planning tries to establish a link between the content to be learned by the learners and the reflexes and responses they produce. These responses will further aggregate to form the behaviors. Since the behavior formation will be based on responses, which will further be based on reflexes and finally upon the stimulus. So the whole gamut of behaviorism lies in shaping behaviors based upon the content that learners interact with during their learning. Lesson plans are constructed undermining the basic objectives or the focus area within. Some lesson plans are related to knowledge aspects, some are related to skill aspects, and others are related to drill and practice aspects. So it's up to the teacher who uses it and for what purposes. A general skeleton of lesson plan consists of the following components. This general schematic representation of a lesson plan is also referred to as the skeleton of a lesson plan. The first of this skeleton is general information. This section consists of the general information about the teacher, classroom, level of classroom, subject to be taught, unit or topic selected for the current class, age level of the students, estimated time available, and the date on which the class will be held. Second component of the skeleton of lesson plan is content analysis. This section consists of the teacher's efforts, whereby the teacher goes through the text time and again, underlines the important concepts, selects the major outlines to be covered in the classroom, arrange the concepts in a hierarchical order, write the meaning of these concepts, and select related learning experiences. Third component of this skeleton of lesson plan is writing instructional objective in behavioral term. This component is very essential because this is important section of a lesson plan, and herein the instructional or the specific, or we can say the behavioral objectives, are clearly written in terms of the learning outcomes or the behavior itself of the students. These objectives uses some key action verbs of appropriate level, say for knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, evaluation, and synthesis. So these objectives are called as behavioral objects because they are written in terms of the observable behaviors of the learners. These behavioral objectives are written in observable terms so that after teaching is over, a teacher can ascertain whether the objectives have been realized or not. If we take the example of writing instructional objective in behavioral term, we can take few examples like the students will be able to define a concave lens. The students recall the properties of a triangle. The students are able to differentiate plant and animal cells. The students will be able to compare the properties of soft and hard water. The students will be able to apply the properties of angles in calculating the area of a triangle. These examples of instructional objectives that we have discussed, these are hierarchy in nature, and the objectives that we have discussed, these are of knowledge level, comprehension level, as well as application level. The fourth component of the skeleton of lesson plan are teaching aids or the learning materials. These teaching aid or learning materials are used as teaching aids, and these motivate students to learn and engage them in learning activities and sustain their attention. Various type of teaching learning materials can be used based upon the content of the lesson and the objectives. Some common teaching learning materials or the teaching aids are charts, models, video clips, and in addition to there can be other teaching learning materials available also, and it depends upon the topic and the content selected for the teaching. Fifth component of the skeleton of lesson plan is assumed previous knowledge. Since lesson plan is done before teaching, so the initial behavior of the learners are assumed by the teacher and written in the lesson plan. This acts as a base for initiating interaction into the classroom. Further, teacher tries to establish a link between this behavior and the current topic which is scheduled for teaching. Sixth component of this skeleton of lesson plan, procedure or the method. Here the teacher gives a brief outline of the methods to be used for teaching this particular topic. A teacher selects any method depending upon his or her expertise in that, the topic he or she is going to teach, the activities that are involved in the teaching learning, and the different learning materials or the teaching learning materials available with the teacher. One may like to choose either lecture method or demonstration method or a combination of both, or laboratory method or experimental or heuristic or project method. Seventh component of the skeleton of lesson plan is introduction of lesson. At the very beginning, the lesson needs to be introduced. This is to be done to focus on the task by seeking the students' attention, testing their previous knowledge, motivating students for new learning, and making a link between the known and the unknown, that is, the current topic which the teacher is going to teach. Introducing a lesson needs a skill of probing questioning on the part of the teacher. In addition to this, a teacher may select various other ways to introduce any lesson. And that's why there is no fixed method for introducing any lesson plan in the classroom. The eighth component of the skeleton of lesson plan is interaction with the students and presentation of the lesson. This is considered as the body of the lesson. Here the content, methods and knowledge about the students go together, and interaction of all the components takes place here in this phase or in this stage. This process provides a variety of activities like learning opportunities and situations to the learners to learn from. At this stage, learners remain active and engaged in the process of learning. This kind of engagement encourages students to form new connections among the components of the knowledge and helps in their concept formation. The ninth component of the skeleton of lesson plan is recapitulation and evaluation. Here in this phase, the students are asked questions based upon their teaching and interaction to help them recall the main points of discussion, what they have learned. Evaluation ensures whether or not the objectives set for the current class are achieved or not. This is done through ascertaining the behavioral outcome of the learners. 10th component of the skeleton of lesson plan is blackboard summary. In some of the lesson plans, blackboard summary is also presented. It guides the teacher while using blackboard in the classroom while teaching. Here, major points of the lessons are highlighted. 11th component of the skeleton of lesson plan is homework. This is very important segment of a lesson plan, and any home assignment ensures students' engagement in learning even after the class and school hours. It engages the learners even outside the class and at their homes even. A 12th and the last component of a skeleton of lesson plan consists of references. The references are given to show the source of information presented to the learners. It includes source of information selected for the teaching. After this, we can have a following image as example, which represents the format of a lesson plan. So, dear student teachers, today we have discussed behaviorist lesson planning. This is called so because this approach of lesson planning focuses on shaping the behavior of the learners, and this approach of lesson planning tries to make a tandem between the content and behavior of the learners. And that's why in the discussion you might have experienced that here we write instructional objective in the form of the behavior of the student itself, whereby we use action verb of different labels. We use action verbs to represent the knowledge label, we use action verb to represent the comprehension label, we use action verbs to represent the application label. And thereafter, we have discussed various components of the skeletal of a general lesson plan. So I hope so that this discussion will help you in your career, and thank you very much.